So I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence. And there's so much hype these days about the word AI. But I'm here to tell you that some of that hype is also reality. There is a global competition for all countries, all companies, all individuals to use artificial intelligence to improve their competitiveness in the marketplace. China took a lead. China was the first country that put its stake in the ground and said that by 2025, we are going to be one of the leaders in using machine learning and artificial intelligence, teaching even our high school kids artificial intelligence, and making them competitive in the 21st century. Then, of course, many countries followed suit. France, Singapore, Germany, Canada, and just a few months ago, even the United States of America. Now, what's happened is that as a result, it has a bit of a celebrity status. You know, just like Beyonce or like J-Lo or whatever equivalent Swedish rock star there is, everybody talks about AI quite a lot. But every time we talk about AI, we also worry about AI. People think about whether it will take over. This is a game of Go, a very complicated Chinese game. And this is Lee Sedol, who was one of the grandmasters of this game. And 2 years ago, he was defeated by an artificial intelligence agent. It was created by DeepMind, an AI company that was bought by Google, and it created something called AlphaGo. And when it beat the grandmaster, he couldn't believe it. It was so counterintuitive, this move. He had never seen anything like it. He was at once mystified, shattered with disappointment, but also incredibly excited at this new technology. But this is not where I work. I'm here to talk to you not about these kind of games, the movies that we see, or the Wired magazine covers. I'm here to tell you what happens in reality when we go to companies in Asia, in Europe, in America, and we create AI engines for them. Now, AI can be thought of as in 3 blocks. Where I normally work is narrow AI. And narrow AI means you give a particular problem to a machine and ask it to do these routine problems again and again. For example, you may say that try to understand what customer service requests you get. It's a very specific problem. Or try to optimize my pricing for a particular product in the market. This is very different from general AI, which means that I can actually think like a human being. Human beings can connect dots. They can be empathetic. They can be strategic. AI is nowhere near this. And then, of course, there's this big fear. Is it going to take over us? Will it put us in zoos when it becomes more intelligent than us, when it becomes so-called super AI? Well, we are very far from that. I'm not going to say that it might never happen that another kind of intelligence may surpass us in some ways, but I don't think we're near that anywhere at all. Where we are is we are in a position today to use artificial intelligence and data to innovate, to really empower ourselves to actually build the products and services that we need to have sustainable economies, sustainable businesses, and to create a better world while also making money for businesses and individuals. Now, in Asia, this is something of great interest to us. You know, each second, 5 people join the middle class, and the majority of these people are actually in Asia. And with them as they move into the middle class, they bring with them their hopes, their dreams, the need for healthcare, the need for education, the desire that their children should go to a better school than they did, and also the desire to eat better. Most of these people have been living on grains, on vegetables, and now they would like to eat better. They would also like to have meat, for example. But yet, with every opportunity, you also have problems. This example is from China, but it could be any country in the developing world. It could be Africa, South America, any place in Asia, where you can't always be guaranteed that the food that is coming to your table is safe. In fact, in China, there were over 500,000 food safety violations within 9 months 2 years ago. So let's imagine a scenario. Let's say that you go to China, to a second or third tier city, and you decide to have some people over for dinner. And you think, I'm going to cook some roast chicken. And I'm going to invite my family, and my kids and I are going to have a nice meal with our friends. Now, you're not going to the best grocery store. You're going to maybe a small store. And you go, and there's a meat packet over there. And you pick it up. And it says, it's free-range chicken. Now, is it really chicken? Is it really free-range? How do you know? This is a problem in some countries. May not be a problem in Sweden, but it is a problem in some of the Asian, African, and other countries. And the question is, could you solve this problem if you knew how to actually use new technologies? Because one insurance company figured out that people will be willing to pay to have this assurance. I'm a mom. If you could assure me that this chicken was actually healthy, free-range chicken, I would pay a little bit extra. So Zhang An decided that it would use 3 of the most cutting-edge technologies in the world to solve this problem. First, it said it would put the Internet of Things, small sensors, on the anklets of 23 million chickens so that it would know if they were free range moving around or if they were cooped up in their cages. It would use computer cameras and facial recognition technology to know when they were born and if they were healthy, and then it would mark the moment it was born to the moment it was put on a ship to go to the grocery store, and all parts of this information it would keep on the blockchain. Why the blockchain? Because the blockchain prevents tampering, which often happens in corrupt countries. So this is an instance where a problem that millions of people face can actually be solved only if you knew about deep technologies, about artificial intelligence, about sensors. If you didn't know that, then as an employee, as an entrepreneur, as a citizen, it's very difficult to think innovatively. And of course, the Wall Street Journal covered this as well. It's been all over. It's made a lot of waves. They have already hundreds of thousands, or maybe 110,000 chickens that they have already put these sensors on. But at the end of the day, all technology, including artificial intelligence, is really to solve a problem. I have many CEOs who go and watch movies like Black Panther, and then they say, Ayesha, we should do some AI. And I was, why? Why do you want to do it? You can't just do AI for AI's sake. You have to have a problem, a challenge, a goal. And in this case, it's always to make lives better for those who actually want to live a higher quality of life. That is the North Star by which we measure sustainable businesses who actually do good while creating products and services that make money. Now, here's the thing. I gave you an example of one company that did something absolutely new. But there's the other example of companies doing something that some other company is not doing so well. I'll ask you a question. Can a transport company become a bank? Well, I think it was just yesterday that Apple also announced that it's actually going to have a credit card now. So we do know that banks are not only threatened by small startups, they are now under threat from all kinds of companies, including tech companies, and also including transport companies. But let's try to understand the problem. ASEAN has 622 million people. That is Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. And 50% of this population, 300 million people, is under 30 years of age. And most of them often never have a bank account. You know how unjust that is? When somebody doesn't have a bank account, they can't get a loan. They can't buy a house. They can't buy a car. They can't send their kids to college. It's actually a terrible injustice, and yet we have people like him who for years never have access, has no hope. This is one of the drivers for Grab, or someone like him is one of the drivers of Grab. And one can imagine this is a picture from Jakarta, which is an evolving city in Indonesia. He has his child. He wants to send her to school. He wants to maybe get private health insurance. How is he going to get that loan? And to drive the point home, I'd like you to look at this map. In East Asia and Southeast Asia, 59% of adults do not have formal or semi-formal financial services. That means 60% of adults have no bank account. In a country like Pakistan, if you go to South Asia, you may say, how many people actually have a mortgage? And you know, there are 206 million people in Pakistan. How many people do you think have a mortgage with a bank? 50,000. It's unbelievable. It's a huge opportunity, yet banks were not motivated, right? Because they were making money. They were dominating Asia, and they said, okay, there are a lot of unbanked, so what? Eventually, some of them will come and become part of our customer service. But now, just because you are the leader in any industry, whether it's telecom, manufacturing, retail, banking, does not mean that you will be safe, because others will actually begin to offer that same service. In this case, Grab decided, this car-sharing company, decided that, you know what, these drivers, we understand their behavior. We know that these drivers who work for us, we know if they come on time, we know if they give good customer service, we know where they go. We have some data on them that helps us analyze if they are risky or not for loans. So instead of the traditional data that banks use, we can actually use alternate forms of data and assess their credit worthiness. And this allows us to give them loans. And in fact, Grab launched an e-wallet and partnered with MasterCard in order, in 2019, to give many different people who are out part-time taxi drivers or are delivering food for Grab through its food delivery company, they began to form a new way to assess risk. And when you do that, you can give loans. Fast Company has 50 top companies in the world every single year. Almost always, these companies are from the US or from Europe. But now, this year, the number 2 company on Fast Company's 50 most innovative companies was Grab. Grab is a huge success story of Southeast Asia. And this gentleman, Anthony Tan, is actually one of the founders of Grab. So it was interesting. I was talking about Grab and I was talking about Asian consumers. And somebody said, you know, in Sweden, we would not be so motivated to start such a company like this because we don't see these problems, Ayesha. And when you're exposed to these problems, then only you would think like that. And I just wanted to say that he actually thought of this idea when he was at Harvard Business School, that he was not a poor man, but he was able to identify an opportunity somewhere in the world. Many great companies are started by people who run into the problem or travel and come across the problem. And I think there's great opportunity for many Nordic companies, large and small and entrepreneurs, to look around the world where there are so many challenges, especially in cities, to actually make a difference. Now, interestingly enough, we have seen that Grab continues to get funding using its high-tech engineering, its use of alternative and big data, and its innovative way of offering new services that are useful to its customers. And guess what? It's also now going to give insurance. Usually you need an insurance company to give insurance, but insurance companies were unable to reach millions of users, so one company partnered with Grab. Which company? The same company that's putting sensors on chickens' anklets. So innovative companies are partnering with each other. And when they do that, because they know how to use technology, because they are bold, because they are making a difference in the lives of people, they are outcompeting traditional players. Now, you may say, Ayesha, this is very easy for you to say because you run an AI company. I, admittedly, am a geek. I love big data. I love machine learning. I've been doing it for many years. But I think that when you want to make an entire nation or a company or your family, when you want to prepare yourselves for the next century, or even this century, you need to nurture your talent. And I'm going to give you an example of a country where I live, which is Singapore. Singapore's Deputy Prime Minister said to all of us citizens, what if jobs and skills have an expiry date? It's a really profound question. And for someone like me that took 7 years to do her PhD, it's kind of shocking and uncomfortable that even after all of that, I am still going to have to think of studying. But his point was the following. In Singapore, we don't have natural resources. We don't have commodities like oil or other things. We have people. People and the talent of our people is the topmost priority of the government. And so it was very important for all of us citizens to understand that the world is changing, that if we want to nurture companies like Grab and Zhongan and build sustainable businesses, then we need to upskill ourselves. One area that bothered the government was that it was a financial hub. Singapore competes with Hong Kong, New York, London, Tokyo to be one of the world's most important financial hubs. Yet, technology is disrupting banking to its core. At one point, the former Citigroup CEO said that 30% of banking jobs will be lost because of automation and technology. Now, for Singapore, it had to make a decision. If we were moving from banking to fintech, then, well, we wanted to be the fintech capital of Asia, at a minimum. We also wanted to evolve. But how could we do that? We could put our head in the sand and hope this whole new tech world blows over, or we could take the bull by the horns and disrupt ourselves. We could basically say, we see it coming, we're going to open the door, and we are going to welcome all this disruption. They named a chief fintech officer of the entire country. And then they held the largest Singapore fintech festival in the world. And they began to give regulatory support. It's always difficult to get the balance right between regulation and innovation. People tend to swing between the two. But actually, you need to find a balance. The government needs to be a partner in innovation, but it also needs to stop manipulation and decrease risk. In Singapore, the Monetary Authority of Singapore said, we are going to put a sandbox. And in this sandbox, we welcome all our young entrepreneurs and old entrepreneurs, mid-career entrepreneurs. Come, experiment with new kinds of technologies in this sandbox. We'll evaluate the risk, and then we'll give you a fast-track license. This strategy turned out to be quite good. This is one example. The woman in the middle who's sitting down, her name is Val. She's a really enterprising young entrepreneur, and she built her company called PolicyPal. She was one of the first graduates of the sandbox. She got her license as an insurance broker, and then she also raised a fair bit of money and is now expanding her company. This is a classic example of having the regulation, controlling the risk, but also encouraging entrepreneurs, giving them the support they need so that they are not risk-averse, which, as we know, can be a problem in some parts of the world. The second thing is, there's no point building a beautiful car that goes very fast if the airbag doesn't work, if you have an accident. You have to have an AI safety framework. And by the way, this is as relevant for robotics, for quantum computing, for space tech, whatever new technology you think about. Now, obviously, cybersecurity is incredibly important. So is data protection. But there's another thing, too, which is the ethics of how you are creating these algorithms. And the Singapore government already had the Cybersecurity Authority working on the first thing, the data protection law for the second thing, and then it set up a committee on ethics and artificial intelligence so that you did not do things that were manipulating people. There is technology now. Let's say one of you downloaded this technology from a Chinese firm that allows you to record my voice for 3 seconds only. After that, you can make me say anything. You can call up my mother-in-law, you can call up my clients, you can call up the government, and they will not be able to tell it's not me. That is how good some of the mimicking is with some of these AI technologies. Now, on the one hand, such advances are important because of the underlying technology is the same that's used in early detection of certain cancers. On the other hand, you can't let human beings be manipulated this way. So you need an ethical framework. And there's another problem with AI sometimes. The problem is that it can be so complicated And remember, the machine is going into hundreds of millions of computations that sometimes you can't completely understand why it came up with a certain answer. And if one doesn't take care to try to understand it, to try to explain it, companies could get away with that. And then it is not ethically sustainable, such a way of doing business. GDPR has tried to open the black box of artificial intelligence. It has set up certain guidelines. I actually think, some people think it's too strict, but I think for us in Asia, it actually gives you some good guidelines on how to put human values and human rights equal to data rights, and to make sure we're protecting people, even as we're innovating. Again, we need to keep innovating, but we need to do it in a way that respects the lives of people, the rights of people. And one of the articles, even though it's a bit vague, says that if an algorithm made a decision that significantly affected your life, for example, let's say you went to maybe a hospital and were refused a certain medication, or you applied for a loan and you didn't get it, then you have the right to ask, why did this AI, how did it come to that decision? This will force a lot of innovation in the field of AI. Already people are talking about it a lot more. And this is a very necessary debate we all need to have with each other. We all need to understand a little bit of how it works. The Singapore government was keen that within this larger framework, that it sought also to remind all its citizens not to be afraid, because your domain expertise and experience matters. I run an AI firm. I cannot come into any of your businesses and start taking over the business. It doesn't happen that way in reality. In reality, every business we go to, we work with the domain experts and we say, tell us, what is the strategy? Tell us your pain points. Explain the data to us. And together, we build a data-driven product. This is really important. It's really important that none of us think that AI is a black box, like a movie that we're looking at, that we have no power over. In fact, you should feel very confident. Oh, here's something that could help me. I already know a lot. If I work with the people who know how to work with machine learning, then together we could innovate. If you don't feel confident, then you are missing out on the opportunity to take your company and your own career to the next level. Because every team is now interdisciplinary. And that's me in the middle. So, you need social scientists, you need AI engineers, you need business experts, you need design experts. It's never been a better time to follow your passion. But please remember, it's never been more important to learn how to work with people like me, and for me to learn to work with people like you. In Singapore, every time bankers felt threatened, the government started subsidizing courses for them so that they would understand how AI was affecting their jobs. This is a number of banks that have signed up for this course called AI in Finance. And it's an important course because it doesn't try to make coders out of everybody or data scientists out of everybody. But it says, you, the banker, have something valuable which will become more valuable to you if you learn how AI will improve or disrupt or affect your work. If you learn within the context of your domain, you are much more empowered to do well with it. And then Singapore said, to all its citizens, we give you $500 each. Take anything you want. And mooncake baking is very popular. as one of the most popular courses. But so is gamification. At the end of the day, it's not about learning technology. It's about pursuing your passion and then partnering with the people who you need to build the businesses of the future. I'd like to end with what Mark Benioff says, which is every country needs a minister of the future. I think every country, every company, every family, every school needs someone who can tell them what is happening with these new technologies. All of us are equally capable of coming up with interesting ideas. Sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. And it's not rocket science. I challenge all of you today, no matter your age, your gender, your job, to please start learning some basics of AI, to sign up for some courses, and you can just audit them on Coursera or Udacity, and you'll find very quickly that you will begin to feel much more confident and excited about what you can do while protecting the rights of all the very human beings around the world so that we can truly build sustainable businesses with AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a truly insightful presentation. Just a couple of questions. If you were to connect AI to sustainability, what kind of things do you think we could achieve?
Look, I think that there are several kinds of sustainability, right? There is environmental sustainability. So a lot of the work, my own PhD is in transport and smart cities. So a lot of the work that I'm doing in Singapore is also related to reducing emissions by having people use more public transport and by providing them options through AI-based platforms that tell them what option is available at what time, or scooter, electric car, a bus, etc. We can also have economic sustainability. We know the supply chain. I talked about food, but there's so much food that goes to waste because of corruption, but because also the food logistics are not optimized. Now, in order to increase the use and reduce food waste, you can have that. We have also been using AI and deep learning based on satellite imagery to actually inform farmers when to put pesticide and fertilizer where. That improves the yield of agricultural fields. And then, of course, there's so many businesses in this way that you can build sustainable, where you actually are good for the environment, good for society, and optimizing the work that one does.
You talked a bit about the Minister of the Future, right?
Yes.
Yes. Let's say I'm the Minister of the Future for Sweden. What would you give me as an advice?
I would say the first thing would be to make sure that everybody in Sweden, no matter what their age, actually has some instinct or some basic understanding of how computers work and how AI works. And for children, there are many cool programs in computational literacy. And for the adults, there are several courses like Elements of AI, which is a free course by the Finnish government. And there are also lots of other courses as well. But if you could subsidize it or encourage it, and companies could encourage it with tax benefits or anything else, I almost think it's a human right for citizens to know this. Like, this is going to affect us in every possible way. And it is unfair on ourselves, our companies, and our families if we don't educate ourselves.
Great advice. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your presentation. Let's have a big applause for Ayesha Khanna.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.